Southwest London, and we have a great connection to Tokyo already. Just tested it out. You're very on the ball. I said people would want to come in early. You're all very welcome.
Well, we're at 153 people so far.
There are, and rising.
And rising. And we're on YouTube as well.
Great. Yes, I'm a Zoomer. Some people like YouTube.
So welcome everybody on YouTube.
Good morning from Adam in Richmond. Hello, Adam. Must be one of ours if you're Richmond. It's rainy and dismal, so it's nicer to be in your sitting room being transported to Tokyo than out for a walk on your own. Let's hope it cheers up later so we can get some fresh air. Good morning and welcome. I'm just speaking so that you can all test your volumes. Make sure you've got your speakers on whatever device you're using turned on and up. Somebody from West Sussex, somebody from Nottingham. Hello, Ilana. Oh, it's not, it's right, some initials I can't fathom out. The Art Society somewhere, N. I don't know where that was. They're flashing up too quickly. Let's go to the chat and see who we've got. We've got Richard in West Sussex, Adam in Richmond. We've got Chair of Nottingham, Ilana. TASNM. I'm not sure where NM is. Looking forward to it. That's from Chris. Good morning, Chris. Chris. Good morning, Denise in St. Albans. Oh, we've got somebody in Tokyo. That's Colston, Newcastle or something. Not raining in Wigan. Well, we clearly all need to move north. NM's been sorted out for me. It's New Milton. Chichester evening, Charlotte. Kate in Southwest London. Gloucestershire Painswick Art Society. Jenny, they've got the sun trying to shine there. That's not fair. Taunton. I think Taunton's a very small society. So is that the one that's very small, Richard? Or have I got it wrong?
It's Torbay that has.
Oh, that's Torbay. I'm muddling up my art societies. Andrea in East Surrey and several members from Norfolk, Glaven Valley, Norfolk. Well, you're all most welcome. And we're just up to 2:30 so far. Goring-on-Thames. Taunton has 134. Now I was muddling, Jane. There is one, it's Torbay. It's a very tiny but wonderfully active society of only about 30 members. Richard's been in communication with them recently, but I get all the societies muddled, I'm afraid, unless I write it down. There are so many of you all over the UK and abroad.
Bit of publicity there for Taunton, who say that they've got 134 members. If you like to join them, you'll be the 135th.
Yes,
I think you'll get a bottle of champagne if you're the 135th member. It's an old tradition.
sent by the chair of the Art Society Richmond.
It's such fun, isn't it?
It's great fun.
All around.
Oh, somebody from Cheltenham in Penny, I think it was. Hello, Penny. Welcome. Everybody's welcome. If I've left you out of an individual hello, my apologies. But they're pouring in. Greyshot, Harpenden, Henley, Rainey Amersham. Yeah, I suspect David and Dick and Ruth, we've probably got your rain moving towards London. It often does that, doesn't it? From west to east. We sometimes sit here and it starts to rain.
We've got 4 minutes to go, and I think you wanted to say some things before we started.
I did. I'm going to start at about 2 minutes to. I'm going to do my preamble so that we don't eat into the much more interesting time in Tokyo. We're on a fairly tight schedule in Tokyo because they've got a curfew, and we don't want anybody getting into trouble. They've got to get home before the curfew. I've got a nice cup of coffee made for me by my husband. Thank you, husband. Right. 3 minutes to go. I make it. Let's do it by my iPhone, which is accurate. Right, I think I will start my preamble. Anybody who joins now won't have missed anything because it is just the preamble. It's 2 or 3 minutes to go. For those of you who don't know us, I'm Jenny, and I'm currently the membership secretary of the Art Society Richmond, but I usually do the bit of introduction because Richard, who's now the chair next door in the dining room, he's the IT man, and I don't want to distract him from pressing all the right buttons to set the Zoom going and record the YouTube and goodness knows whatever else he does. He's the brains behind the IT, so we leave him to get on with that. We're absolutely thrilled and delighted and terribly excited about this morning's tour. We launched foreign tours with one last autumn. I think it was October or November time, when we walked around Venice with a guide whom we knew. And then Richard had the brainwave that we'd had a wonderful holiday 2 years ago. It was October 2018 with all the beautiful autumn colors in the Japanese gardens. And we went with this great company called Inside Japan Tours with another couple. Had the most memorable holiday. Every aspect of it was great. And we loved the country. And if you like queuing and organization, you should go and live in Japan, because you have to do everything very precisely. And it is the tidiest, cleanest country in the world. You would be hard pressed to find a piece of rubbish anywhere. Somebody can't hear me, but she's not on mute. Then there's something wrong with your device, I think, whoever can't hear me. Well, you'll have to type. Can you type back to her, Richard? So we're absolutely thrilled to have negotiated with Inside Japan to do this this initiative. We've invited a lot of people to come today. So welcome to everybody, our own members. I know Samlesbury is joining us en masse. We sent an invitation to the Japan Society, and to, I think Richard's been in touch with the Japanese embassy even. That's our phone. I hope Richard's going to take it. Yeah, he is. So in Japan, on the ground, we've got Chantel, we've got Brett, and we've got Rob. Some doing the talking, some operating the camera, and all taking us around what we hope is going to be a wonderful hour in Japan, in Tokyo. So I'm going to say thank you to Chantel. Richard's going to switch over to join us to Tokyo. And I hope you all have a wonderful hour being transported into what is a very magical city. Over to you, Richard and Chantel. Somebody's phoned at just the wrong moment, I'm afraid. Are we there, Richard?
Not good to see me.
Why is the sound still coming out?
Right, I can see the street in Tokyo. Right, over to Tokyo.
Would that be okay to go? Can I start?
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. I think everybody's fine. I'm going to take myself off.
So, like Jenny said, we're going to do this Japanese way and start promptly at 7:03. But hello, everyone. My name is Chantal Perfect, and I am an insider with Inside Japan Tours. And I guess for us, it is 7 p.m. roughly in Tokyo, and for you, it's about 10 a.m. So to you, I would say good morning, which in Japanese is Ohayo. It sounds a lot like the U.S. state Ohio. I wish that reference went over better. I wish there was a state in the UK named Ohio, but Ohayo to everyone there. And yeah, I hope you're excited to see Tokyo today. Let's just get started. So I'm gonna put my mask on during the tour. I apologize, but we gotta stay proud of safety. So I'm seeing everyone. Okay, so to take a look around, we're at one of the It is gorgeous indeed. So for those of you who are familiar with Kabuki, you may already have in mind, gorgeous kimono, huge long wigs that people whip around whenever they're performing. You may be familiar with the fact that they perform in really high voices, or you may be familiar with its most infamous quality, which is the all-male cast. So in Kabuki, all of the actors, whether they're playing male or female, are played by men. And even though that is the case today, Kabuki was actually started by the artistic prowess of a woman named Izumo no Okuni. So I asked Richard to send out a PDF to everyone. So if you'd like to see what Izumo looks like, you can go to page 2 of your PDF, page 2. And that's a picture of Izumo's statue, which is in Kyoto. So Izumo was a shrine maiden who used to dance along the Kamo River in Kyoto. And she wanted to introduce a performing art that was accessible to the everyday person. So up to that point,
Too difficult to hear.
I'm
gonna unplug it for 1 second.
Chantal, you got the message that the sound is not coming through so great, but I think you know that already and you're doing something about it. So let's just take a break, see what you can do, and we'll start when you want.
Can you hear me now? Does it sound a little better?
Yes, that sounds better.
Better? Okay. I'll try to move away from the road. Maybe that'll help. But yeah, as I was saying, shrine maiden Izumo no Okuni is the one who started Kabuki. She used to dance on the river, and she had lots of followers, who came and did the same thing. So Kabuki became more popular. They were telling relatable stories. They were taking stories from folklore.
Chantal, it's really hard to hear you still.
Together into dance. So it took no time at all for everything to catch on. However, some of the women who were performing were trying to make a little extra cash after the show. And after a while, the art of Kabuki became a little too entwined with prostitution. So the ruling class at the time banned women from.
Chantal, sorry, I have to interrupt. We can't hear.
They still can't hear. Like, can you put it on your sweater?
Does this sound okay? Any thumbs up?
I think we did the test in a very quiet place without masks. Is probably.
So this is what Kabuki acts look like today. You see? All these lovely, lovely ladies are actually men. And you may take notice of how intricate their face makeup is. So in Kabuki, their face is actually kind of a visual cheat sheet for what the character is going to be. So people who have red lines on their face are the good guys, if you will. People who have blue lines on their face are considered the villains. And people who have brown lines on their face are considered ghostly or heavenly beings. And the more lines that someone has, the more intense their character is. So you can tell someone like, this guy is super intense, but this guy maybe not so much. This lineup this month doesn't have too many intense characters, but if you'd like to take a look at more, you can look at page 3 of your PDF, and that has lots of different Kabuki style makeup. As you can see, they even have little children, so cute. So let's see what is on this month for Kabuki. So as you can see in the beginning, there was 4 kind of woodblock style print. And these are some of the 4 acts that'll be performed this month.
Slow.
Okay, so here comes soap opera time this month. The first play is all about a woman who finds out the secret identity of her gardener is her long-lost lover, whom she thought she was dead. Plenty of drama there. We move on to Act 2. This one is a classic, don't judge a book by its cover type of story. So this one is about a couple who's beautiful on the outside but wicked in the middle, and they're trying to extort people from them. Number 3, we have a story of a woman who is disowned by her family and she comes back for redemption. And then in the very last act, probably the most interesting one, is a parent and child dance. And these 2 are supposed to be mythical creatures called a shishi. And a shishi is like part lion, part dog, and according to Japanese legend, the father would push the baby off a cliff and test their strength. And if they could climb back up to the top, they were ready to face the dead. So this one, the 4th act, me and a friend actually came to see last year, and it was amazing. I mean, there was stomping, there was drumming, there was yelling. Just hold it. I'm so sorry about that. Just hold it. Sorry. Hear me too. Can you hear me now? Okay. So yes, things like this, I think, is what you imagine when you think of Kabuki. You think of the long hair whipping back and forth. And if you would like to get a look at Kabuki, you can buy a single act ticket as opposed to staying for the whole 4-hour production, which you can do this way.
Still safe. Just here.
It's so weird. The tape was hard.
I'm gonna take it out, put it back in.
Okay.
I don't know.
Does this sound okay?
It works fine.
Test, test. Does it sound okay? Maybe if we try to plug it into the top.
Can you just explain what you're doing? Like you're holding the mic.
You know what? Maybe take the mask off.
Does it sound any better without the mask? Did it work for the first time? Can they hear? Test, test. Kabuki, kabuki. Open my head. This is a test. Oh. Sorry about that. You can take a look. Beautiful. There is behind me. Wow. I'm actually. And his name is
They're letting us down a bit, aren't they?
Yeah, it's not good. It's a bit better. Is it a noisy street?
You just explain that you're holding them.
I'll hold the mic like this instead of putting it on my lapel. Does it sound any better if I hold it close? Sound okay?
I would just go with it.
Okay. Well,
Can you test again, Chantal?
can you hear me, Jenny? Does it sound okay? Test, test. Sound okay?
It's still not great.
Well, let's try unplugging it and doing it.
We can hear the man. We can hear if it's Rob or Brett speaking. We can hear you very clearly, but not Chantal.
Maybe
Mic is coming
there must
out
be
on
some
this
kind
one
of
instead.
mic issue. Yeah, we're gonna try and replug in the mics. Sorry, for just a second.
That sounds fine.
That's better there.
What if we try that one up top? Would that make a difference?
We hear you absolutely fine now, Chantal.
Not time for the dog.
Right now, I'm not using the lapel. I took it out. Can you hear me? Perhaps you
Okay, would everybody just wait while we sort this out?
I think you're gonna have to do it without the.
Anyway, we've got 531 people on Zoom, and we've got 115 people on YouTube. That's quite an audience. So we need to keep you.
Can you hear me now? Does that sound okay?
Thank you very much. Somebody's written, no problem. We're all sitting in your.
Thank you for your patience. I'll speak more slowly.
I don't think this is connected. I think it's coming from the phone. So I think it's best if we just
Get rid of it.
we just have to do it without just do it off
Can you hear me from here? Let me try.
No? Yes, sir. You try? Will that work?
Try.
Chantal, I would stand behind. I would stand beside. Stand behind. I would.
Does it sound better now?
Yes.
Okay, I switched to headphones. Not that. I saw the rest of the messages. I will speak more slowly. Okay. We can fast forward on through Kabukis. And I highly recommend when you come to Tokyo, the whole Kabuki performance can be about 4 hours and cost quite a pretty penny if you are willing to watch the whole thing. However, if you want to just pop in and see maybe about 5 to 10 minutes. I'm sorry? Can you hear me? Okay. If you'd like to see just a few minutes of Kabuki, you can come over here and get a single act ticket, which is only about £10 as opposed to like £150 ticket for a full show. So highly recommend it. Me and a friend did it last year. Definitely something you can do while you're in Tokyo. But let's move on from Kabuki. So even though we have this huge grand Kabuki theater, right next door is a really common mom and pop style restaurant that is quintessential Japan. So this is actually a soba restaurant. And you may be thinking to yourself, wow, that place is really small. Why do they have food outside? Well, let's get a closer look. So yes, even though this food is super hyper realistic, it's actually all made of plastic. So in Japan, it's common to kind of get all the silly details out the way. That way, when you're done eating, you can just get out. So what you do is you come and look at all the plastic food. You think, oh, maybe I want some soba with spinach or some ramen with an egg. So you pick what you want on the plastic form. Then you come over to this fancy little machine to buy your food. So the way this works, it's almost like a food vending machine. You take your money and you put it here, boom, slide it in there, and everything that you can afford will light up. And then at that point, you can say, oh, I wanted the spinach noodles, and you just click the button, and it'll spit out a ticket for you down here. Make sure you get your change, or it won't give it to you. Sorry, I didn't put anything in. Okay, your headphone just made a sound. I'm not sure if I can hear. So yeah, make sure you get your change, and then when you walk inside, you hand the ticket to the person working there, and it's a way to make sure that prices stay low, that places can get people in and out as fast as possible, and it's definitely unique to Japan. So this kind of style is usually found at ramen restaurants. So if you see one of these outside, I highly recommend that you give it a shot, put in your money and get the ticket. So yeah, let's move on. I'm gonna be crossing this way. All right. I'm gonna change the food. So right now we're actually really close to the famous Tsukiji fish market. So if you were to maybe walk 10 minutes to the left, you would end up at Tsukiji. So Tsukiji is the largest wholesale fish market in the world, and they deal about 2,000 tons of seafood per day. Yes. Tsukiji is most famous for an auction that they have in the morning. It starts at, a casual 5:30 a.m. So if you early birds are willing to wake up and catch the first train to get there, definitely a sight to see. And what they do is, first thing in the morning, they auction off tunas. And you may be thinking, tuna here is grand prize. And during the New Year's, it's actually a big event to see who pays the most for the first tuna year. Believe it or not, there is a sushi tycoon who owns a
Chantel, can I interrupt you?
Yes.
I think it would be better if you were to stand immediately beside Rob or Brett,
I am
who's got the microphone, because the connection is not so great for the sound. It's quite good for me on my PC, but Jenny's looking on an iPad and it's not very good at all. So just give that a try. Before everybody came in and you were all together, just talking to Jenny and me, it was absolutely fine. So she's just temporarily disappeared. I hope she'll come back again. She's probably logging back on again. There seems to be me here. So she's disappeared. Is that right? Has Jenny disappeared? Hello, Rob. You're sideways on. Rob, you're sideways on.
Can you turn the screen around? What do you mean? So it goes landscape.
No.
You know how you
I mean,
the slide down?
it should be off. This locks it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
That's much better. Yes, if you just stand there, you're probably beside Rob or Brett, and that would be great. That would be fine. So you continue now.
Stop for just a second. Can you hear us now?
Much better.
Much better? Okay, well, I'll have to get rid of headphones and I'll just stand right next to Rob, if that's okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so we just passed Tsukiji Fish Market's in the opposite direction, but we are coming up on what is called pachinko. So, if you're in Japan and you see bright lights and animated characters, you may think, hey, this is an arcade. However, if the door is open and it's incredibly loud and smells like smoke, it is actually pachinko. So pachinko in Japan is a form of gambling, even though gambling is illegal. But there's actually a really interesting way around that. This here is also pachinko parlor. We cannot film the inside, so I highly recommend you go to page 4 of your PDF to see what it looks like on the inside. You see rows and rows of lit up machines and people with their eyes glued to it. So the way it works is it's almost like a mix of slot machines and pinball. So you have these silver balls that you put into the machine and you shoot them out to try to defeat monsters, and it's all up to chance. And should you win, you get more silver balls, and you can trade in those silver balls for, let's say, a purse or a watch or maybe a CD. And the way you make money is there's always right next door a pawn shop of sorts called a TUC shop, where they will buy that prize for you for money. So yes, Japan is full of loopholes, and this is one of the more interesting ones. So if you want to gamble, you can come to a pachinko parlor in Japan. This one looks so innocent, like it's horrific, but this is how life is. So we've already looked, we're knee deep into Japanese culture now. You may be wondering, well, where? So right now we're in an area called Ginza. And if you go to page 5 in your PDF, you can see a full map of Tokyo. So on that page, right in the middle near the water, there's a pink area called Chuo-ku. And within Chuo-ku, we're at number 5, Ginza, right? So we're smack dab in the middle of Tokyo. And just to give you a brief history of what Ginza is all about. Give you a brief history of what Ginza is all about. So at the end of the 19th century, Japan had recently ended its 250-year period of isolation, and it was hungry for modernization, right? So the capital was moved to Tokyo. They wanted to westernize themselves, and they chose Ginza as the guinea pig because, in an ironic turn of events, there was a fire that destroyed the area in 1872. So they decided, all right, let's just start from the ground up. We're going to make a Western-style city. So you could picture yourself on page 6 of your PDF, riding your rickshaw into town and coming to the first brick-style area of Japan. So to people at that time, having brick buildings was brand new. It was such a new concept. It was a new concept to have grid-style streets and wide roads. And it was the area that had the first coffee shop, and it was where window shopping was introduced. So since days of old, Ginza has been an area where you shop and spend the day with your girls and gals. And even to this day, this is where you can get to look at luxury brands and go shopping at department stores. There's some world-class art galleries hidden here and there. And if you look at the next page, page 7 on your PDF, you can see a map of Ginza now and just take a look at what kind of stores are there. You'll notice where the Kabuki Theater is. You may see Chanel and Cartier. What they don't show you is all these tiny alleyways that make Ginza so distinctly Japanese, and that's what let's take a look at today. So we are coming up on a yokocho. So a yokocho is a small style of alleyway that's filled with restaurants. And as you can see at the very top, all those signs, all up here, are different restaurant names. So in these little type areas, it's popular to get a drink. Usually they're just a few seats, a few people can fit in at a time. It's popular to get yakitori or chicken skewers, pass some time with your coworkers, and yes, let's go take a look. So these kind of alleyways may not look like much, but this is definitely where you find the most interesting restaurants in Japan. Never underestimate a kind of shady alleyway, because that's where you find the place the most character. So here we have a place where you can barbecue grill. It's bumping today. Find tiny places where you sit at the counter and really get to know the owner. And it's interesting to see the juxtaposition of how some of these places are really old and traditional, but then sometimes you can find more swanky, stylish places to eat too. Yeah. So yokocho like this are peppered all throughout Tokyo. There's famous ones in Shinjuku and in Shibuya. Definitely make it a point to find your way to a yokocho and get something to eat. It's always nice to just chit-chat with shop owners. And people will try as hard as they can to speak English. So it's always a good time to Interestingly enough, if you're interested in the izakaya, I think I said the word izakaya a few times. Sorry about that. So an izakaya is a tapa-style restaurant. So places like that, they usually sell tiny dishes that are meant to accompany sake or alcohol or beer. Yeah, you've been here so long, I start to use Japanese words in everyday sentences. And yeah, they're not all that common. You can go to a tapa-style bar, or sometimes you'll find alleyways with different hidden treasures. Let's take a look. This particular street is called Mihara Court. So these kind of places will not show up on the map. There's tons and tons of these tiny alleyways that connect back to the main wide streets that are the big streets called the department stores. These always have the most character. Passing a small Chinese style shop where you can get dim sum. these two places on the left and right, the one with the lanterns, are actually famous sushi restaurants. You'll notice that the sushi restaurant on the left has almost what looks like a small fireplace outside. So usually they'll have hot water kettles out here, and they'll keep the tea outside so you can warm your hands while you wait, and then they'll take it inside to make tea. But it's always interesting to me as a Western person to see hot coals and tea outside that is unbothered. All right. Coming up now, we have our first shrine. So you might be wondering, okay, this is a shrine. So what's the religious demographics like in Japan? So in Japan, it's about 60% Buddhist and 60% Shinto and about 1% other. And if you're any good at arithmetic, you'll probably think that math doesn't sound quite right. And that's because in Japan, people are more spiritual than they are religious. So people practice a mix of both. So people, when they're born, let's say, will have a Shinto ceremony, but then when they die, they have a Buddhist-style funeral. So there's always a mix between the two. But this one in particular is a Shinto shrine. And the giveaway for that is this big gate that surrounds it. So this is what's called a Tori gate. Tori. Whenever you see this, you know you're at a Shinto shrine. And you know that this is where the boundary between the holy and the secular world is. To give you a brief history of what Shintoism is, Shinto is the native religion to Japan that is very much based around nature. So in Shintoism, anything that inspires awe can be considered a deity. So you think something like the sun, the wind, the ocean, maybe even Mount Fuji. Any of those things could be given a godly status in the Shinto religion. And this shrine in particular is dedicated to the god of rice. So in Japan, traditionally, rice was how people was paid. It's how people paid their taxes. So rice equals money. So when you pay to the god of rice, you're paying for prosperity and money, which in an area like this that's full of luxury shops and restaurants, everyone's trying to make some cash. All right. So whenever you come to a shrine, the thing to do is to pray. And I'll show you how to do that. So whenever you're praying at a Shinto shrine, you always want to start with an offering. Money talks. And in Japan, the 5 yen piece is considered good luck. Go in. So what you do is you start off. There's usually a little offering box to put in. And then you want to bow twice. Clap twice. Let the gods know you're here. And then you say your prayer. When you're done, you bow one more time to pay your respects. And you pray. So a lot of people may think, when you come to Japan, there's one shrine to go to, right? A lot of people think when you come to Tokyo, you go to Meiji Shrine. And while you can do that, there are shrines like this everywhere, peppered all throughout Ginza, peppered all throughout Tokyo. And this shrine in particular is actually a sub-shrine to a bigger shrine in Kyoto that a lot of people are familiar with called Fushimi Inari. So Fushimi Inari became famous because it was featured in Memoirs of a Geisha. And it's the one shrine that has over 10,000 of these giant Tori-style gates. It has thousands and thousands of those gates lined up. And I mentioned the PDF page. If you go to PDF page 8, you can see what that looks like. The main Fushimi Inari shrine. So all of these are contributions to the shrine because they do cost money. And it's a way of if you donate to it, the shrine, it's a way of ensuring your prosperity. So sometimes you'll see other donations like cups of sake or fruit laid outside, and that's people who have decided to leave offerings with their prayer. To take an even closer look, this is one of my favorite pieces of trivia. For anyone who has kids or grandkids or a love for Disney like I do, you may think, oh, these little bells look kind of familiar. Well, in the Disney movie Big Hero 6, Baymax, a robot, his face is based off of these Japanese shrine bells, which you can see on PDF page 9. If you take a look, you can see perfectly how his white face looks just like this. So much to be seen in just one little alleyway. And wait a minute. I think I know that guy. Is that Brett Platz? Famous Inside Japan Insider? What's up, Brett?
Hi, everybody. My name is Brett from Inside Japan Tours, and Chantel has given me a couple minutes to talk about my favorite thing in Japan, vending machines. Even in this quiet alleyway, there are vending machines lined up on the sides. In Japan, there are over 5.5 million vending machines dotted throughout the country. You may think that's a lot, and it is a ton. But you can buy anything from these vending machines, almost anything. In my time here in Japan, I bought tacos, pizza, champagne, an entire suit. For that story, you have to come to Japan with me and hear about it. But now is a good time in Japan because it's winter. You can see this vending machine here has everything you want. You have tea, coffee, you have water, you have corn soup, you have onion soup, hot cocoa. That's right. All of these red things here are hot drinks. All of these blue ones are cold drinks. That's right. You can find a hot drink and a cold drink in the same machine. Japan has mastered vending machines. Now, it's funny to talk about them, but also they do serve a purpose in that you'll be on the bullet train in Japan and you'll be hurtling down the way and you'll see many vending machines in the middle of nowhere. And that's because in times of, for example, earthquakes, tsunamis, when there's powerful storms and the electricity goes out, people can use these as a place to get food and drink all over the country, regardless of where you are. So that's why I love talking about vending machines. Back to you, Chantel.
Thanks, Brett. You should definitely try the corn soup. That's my favorite. I have it for breakfast every day.
Oh.
So right next to this vending machine, there's some funky looking garage area. You may be thinking, well, what is this? So land is limited in Tokyo, especially in this area, Ginza. So this is actually a parking garage. And because this space is too small to turn on your car, what you do is you bring your car up right here, and they'll turn it around for you. Here, it's more popular to park backwards with the back facing in. And they'll park your car in, and they kind of vending machine style will park your car, and when you're ready, you put in the numbers and get it back later. One of the more interesting parking garages in Japan. So I mentioned that there are many, many alleyways all throughout Ginza. And sometimes those alleyways will cut through stores because it's meant for the main street to be accessible in most cases. So we're actually coming down Ginza Alley, which cuts through a very famous shop many of you will be familiar with. So let's take a look down the Ginza Alley. This alleyway in particular is known for having really good sweet shops. I'm coming up on one that specializes in red bean paste sweets. For anyone who hasn't tried it, it sounds way better, or it is way better than it sounds. As long as you know you're not eating chocolate. A lot of people will see red bean paste in a store and think, oh, it's chocolate, you know, in breads and things. If you think it's chocolate, you'll hate it. But if you go in thinking that it's red bean paste, you'll appreciate how delicious it is. So we've got, like I said, the staple, plastic foods, lots of desserts. And in Japan, the appearance of food is just as important as the taste. That's one of the principles in Japanese cooking, is to make sure that it's a feast for the eyes as much as it is for the taste buds. So there's things like red bean paste ice cream, red bean paste soups, rice crackers, rice balls called mochi, and everyone's crowd favorite, the matcha float. That's what that bright green thing is. Some ice cream. This is always hard for UK customers to understand. Even though there are dessert shops like this everywhere, pudding is not necessarily a part of the Japanese meal. So usually when you go to a restaurant or an izakaya, at the end they don't have a really good dessert menu. And people always ask, where's the pudding? And I'm like, oh, you have to go somewhere else for that. As I mentioned, this alleyway is cutting right through Prada. So we're taking a shortcut through Prada to get back to the most famous area of Ginza. So this is where all the high brand stores are. All the lights, all the glamour, all the shopping that happens on this main street. In normal times, they usually close off the street on Sundays and it turns into some kind of a photo op as well. But this area is some of the most expensive land in Japan, second only to the Imperial Palace. And in the 90s, it was the most expensive area in the world. So definitely having any kind of shop or department store on this corner is a flex of how much money you're making. So let's take it all in. A kind of rounded white building you see right in front of you is a department store, the Wako department store. And of course, right across it, there's another department store, Mitsukoshi. Oh, and we even have the Nissan showroom. They usually don't while filming, so we got to be careful. So this is where Nissan pulls out all of their concept cars, their electric cars, and even on the second floor, you could do your own little virtual reality driving test. Ooh, they even have a race car up front. Let's take a quick peek. So you may be wondering, wow, how much money does Nissan make in this area to afford to be in the most expensive part of Tokyo? You know, you may think millions of pounds. At this showroom, it is actually zero. This is all for show. So, like I said, just having your presence on this crossway goes to show that your company is doing well. And even if you go up higher to the next few floors, Sony has a showroom as well. You can see all the latest gadgets and games. Take your attention away from cars. Let's take a look at a more traditional part of Japan. We have a kimono shop. So yes, you may never have seen a kimono kind of splayed out in this way, but this is what it looks like from the outside. It's almost one size fits all. You could wrap it around many types of bodies. But can you guess how much this kimono is? Let's take a closer look. Would never guess. This is 298,000 yen. That's like what, 2,000 pounds? You have to correct my math on that one. So something like this isn't exactly accessible to everyone. There are definitely 2 times in every Japanese person's life where they do wear kimono. And if you would like to see that, you can look at the PDF that Richard sent before on page 10. And on the top left, you'll see 2 children in kimono. So that's for a festival called Shichigo-san, which translates to 753. So the ages 3, 5, and 7 are milestones for children. And if they make it past those ages, they're likely to survive into adulthood. So when children will turn 3, 5, and 7, they'll dress up in kimono and usually go to temples to do photo shoots. So it's the day to celebrate your kids and them just growing older, getting bigger, getting cuter. That festival falls in November. So if you come to see the autumn leaves, you'll most definitely see some cute kids in kimono walking around too. So yes, there's the 357 festival. And then another time that every Japanese person wears kimono is the coming of age ceremony. That one actually just passed in the beginning of January. So in Japan, the year that you become an adult, that you can drink alcohol, that you can get a driver's license, is when you turn 20. So the year that you turn 20, in January, you dress up in kimono and you celebrate with your high school graduating class. So you'll notice that one is at the bottom of the kimono page. During the coming of age ceremony, it's more common for women to wear the kimono than for men, but those are definitely the 2 times in a Japanese person's life they'll come across kimono. And then the kimono on the top right is like something that we saw earlier. If you see someone just walking around casually, maybe an older lady who still likes to wear kimono, or people working in shops, they'll use that kind of more subtle kimono. Maybe not something as grand as this one right here. Going back to the Haynes Crossway. So I mentioned before that on this King's Crossroad, we have two really famous department stores. And while you may not be looking to do so much high-end shopping while you're in Tokyo, I highly, highly recommend that you make your way into the basement of these department stores, because the basement is where they keep all the food. So they'll have beautiful bento boxes and individually wrapped souvenirs, the most gorgeous desserts you've ever seen, and the most pristine fruit you've ever laid eyes on. So you may be wondering, okay, how nice can fruit be? To give you an idea, if you were to buy, let's say, a bunch of grapes at your local supermarket, in Japan anyway, at the cheapest, they're about 4 pounds. However, if you come to a department store, the grapes are about 45 pounds. And if you want to get Japan's favorite fruit, the melon, it can get up to 96 pounds for one melon. So people often come to department stores to get wedding gifts, and fruits are to be taken seriously in Japan. So definitely find your way to a department store, check out the sweets. Even if you don't buy them, they're the most perfect fruits you'll ever lay eye on. So just across the street, we're passing a flower shop. And Valentine's Day has just passed in Japan. So the thing about Valentine's Day in Japan that's a little different is in Japan, the women will make chocolate and buy flowers for men on February 14th. And then, whether or not he accepts, you have to wait a whole month to get your answer. And then on March 15th, the guy is supposed to give chocolate back if he accepts. And that's called White Day. And if you didn't get anything for Valentine's, or you didn't get the recognition you wanted for White Day, a month later, you can celebrate the Korean version called Black Day. And that's where you eat black noodles and kind of celebrate your loneliness. So a more interesting holiday that came from the West. So we're passing a police box, one of these right here. So Tokyo is actually one of the safest cities in the world, and a lot of people wonder why that's the case. And it has a lot to do with how they do policing. You may notice the police officers ride little bikes, and they really get into the neighborhoods and handle crime locally. So rather than have one giant police center for a city, there's tons and tons of tiny police boxes outside of every train station, in every neighborhood, so that you can handle crime locally. Because there's not so much crime in Japan, usually the police officers are around to help you with directions, but it's always easy to find them and always easy to ask for help. Don't be intimidated if you do see them. So on our left, we're coming up to a sweet shop that has my absolute favorite dessert in Japan. It's called Yukimi Daifuku. This is the roughest translation you'll ever hear, but imagine it's like a snowball of happiness. That's what I like to call it. I'll come back to that later. So I want you to burn this image in your mind, and when you come to Japan, I highly recommend you try one of these. It's a rice ball with powdered sugar, red bean paste, and a strawberry. And I wish we can get some smell of it in here so you can smell it. So there is one time of the year that it's popular to give these as gifts to kids, and that's actually coming up next month. So in March, there's another festival, and this one is specifically to celebrate girls on Girls' Day. So usually when you have a baby girl, you buy a set of dolls, and then mid-February, you set those dolls out, you decorate the house with them. And then on March 3rd, you celebrate your daughter's life, you pray for her fortune and happiness, you maybe give her some of the snowballs of happiness treats with strawberries, and you have these dolls set outside. This is just a representation of the dolls, but close second. And what you do is, as soon as the girls' festival is over, you have to put them away immediately. And if you don't, you are delaying your daughter's marriage. Very, very bad luck. So that's a holiday that's coming up next month. The dolls are supposed to represent the royal family. There's an emperor and an empress and court attendants. Sometimes the dolls can look a little creepy. These ones are really cute. So you may have noticed, I've brought up transportation and subways in Japan. That is the end all be all of how to get around, is you catch the subway or the train, which is called the JR. So we've already passed about 3 or 4 subway entrances, and we're coming up on one on the right now. So if you're in Japan, the best way to get around is taking the subway, and you can find that right here. It's kind of hard to see with this lighting, but if you see like a blue sign with what looks like McDonald's arches, that is the subway, and it'll get you to pretty much any corner of Tokyo. Taxis here are on the more expensive side, so you have a Google map, some kind of app to help you get to the trains. Subway is where you go. A lot of people can be intimidated by the Tokyo subway system, but it makes a lot of sense once you're in it. All the signs are in English, in Tokyo anyway, so you won't get too lost. You'll have a good time. So you may notice on the left side, there's a taxi. In this area, because it's a more richer area, you tend to see lots of taxis waiting around because people in this area have much more money to spend and they're willing to spend that money to get home. And this style of taxi is actually new. 2 years ago, Japan invested a lot of money into getting these bigger style taxis to support the Paralympics. So hopefully all that pans out and the Olympics can happen. But yeah, most of Japanese taxis are small black cars. But now we're seeing a lot more of this bigger model of the Olympics. You may be wondering what the corona situation is like in Japan right now. So right now we're technically in a state of emergency. And what that means right now is that restaurants and any establishment that sells alcohol has to close by 8. Most other shops will close at that time as well. And you may have noticed that everyone that we've passed is wearing masks. Masks is almost at 100% rate here. I don't think I've seen anyone's face in a very long time. So numbers have been getting lower with the state of emergency. Originally, it was intended to last for a month. It started January and it was going to last till February 7th, but it just got extended for 1 more month. So hopefully things will look good for the Olympics. So this may seem like a small thing to people in the UK, and even to me as an American. You would think, yeah, street signs, that's normal. How else would you know where you're going? This is most definitely a rarity in Japan. Like I said, Ginza, this is the western area. So this is one of the few spots that has very clearly marked grid streets and they all have names. But in the rest of Tokyo, the addresses kind of work in a blocking system. So it's more like you go to this block in this lot with this number. They're not necessarily always sequential. So these are hard to come by. But another thing that people often ask is how does this, and this equal Namikidori? Which brings me to the Japanese writing system. So if you go to page 11 of the PDF, for those who can open it, you'll see what that writing system looks like. So in Japan, there's actually 3 different writing systems. There's hiragana and katakana, which are phonetic style alphabets, and they're in the chart on your PDF. And those ones each have 46 symbols, and you can write out anything you could think of exactly how you say it. It's all phonetic. And then outside of, okay, you have your 46 hiragana, your 46 katakana. Then you get into Chinese characters called kanji. And that's what these are. So in order for a child to become a functioning adult and graduate high school, they have to learn over 2,000 of these unique Chinese characters, which is no easy feat. And if you want to graduate university, double that. Learn 2,000 more. So if you want to study for the rest of your life, you should try taking up Japanese. You who are asking questions in the comments, at the very end, I'll leave some time for questions. But like I said, right now with the corona situation, we do have an 8 o'clock curfew. So I'll try to answer as many questions as I can. Hopefully the police don't kick us out because there's another police box right across the street. Like I said, they're everywhere. If you look across the street, you may notice that there's one glistening building. It's actually by famous Italian architect Renzo Piano, and it's meant to look like lanterns, glittering lanterns. So I feel like we're very lucky to see this at nighttime when it gets to shine in all its glory. And if you go to the top of that building, there's a gallery hidden in there. So if you're willing to peruse the department stores and many brand stores, you can find lots of galleries hidden throughout the info. And now we're coming up to one of my favorite things about Japan, which is how you relieve your stress and how you pass the time. So in a culture where people have to work really hard and they're praised for overwork, it's important to have a really great way to relieve stress. Maybe that's why, the pachinko gambling is so popular. But another great option is karaoke. So this place, Big Echo, in the red, that's a karaoke bar. And if you look right next door, there's a blue sign that says karaoke, and it's literally 10 floors of karaoke. So this country does not take singing lightly. So I highly recommend, if you like to scream, you should ask for Chantel and Inside Japan Tours, and we can karaoke and scream together. Karaoke is definitely something you have to try. And just around this corner, we can't go look at it because it's in the subway system and our connection is likely to go out. There's a world famous sushi restaurant called Tsukibayashi Jiro. So there's a documentary called Jiro Dreams of Sushi. And a lot of people are familiar with that. And it shows a Michelin star restaurant that even President Obama ate at. So definitely a big deal. You have to make reservations about 3 months in advance to even get in. And it's actually one of the only Michelin star restaurants that doesn't have a bathroom. It's right next door because it's so small. It's just down this way into the subway, which is kind of strange to think about. A Michelin star restaurant in a subway. Like if it was in the US, I would never want to eat in a subway place. But never underestimate the proximity to the subway in Tokyo. Usually that's a good sign. The closer you are to the subway, the better you are. And if you haven't seen that documentary, highly recommend you check it out. It just goes to show the dedication and the meticulous nature behind craftsmanship in Japan. But I have a list at the end for everyone who's interested in immersing themselves in Japan in different ways. You can check out my 3 recommended movies and my 3 recommended books. Oh, look, we have a little python. You never know what you're going to see in Tokyo. We also have our second police box just across the street. You walk about 15 minutes in any direction and you'll see one. Another interesting thing about Tokyo is that the city has many, many layers. So we've already passed, 1,000,001 subway entrances. There's like a whole society underneath us right now. There's a highway that's cutting right above the police box. And way behind that, you probably can't see it right now, there's a track where the bullet train passes by. But maybe not at this moment. So like I mentioned, I have my recommendations for digging deeper into Japanese society. If you go to the very last pages of your PDF, pages 12, you'll see my 3 recommended movies. The first being my all-time favorite movie, Tampopo, which is all about a woman who has to go through a grueling process to open a ramen restaurant. And it's actually super funny. It's a spaghetti western, so it's really interesting food stories all mixed into one long ramen tale. Definitely a must-see if you want to come to Japan and understand Japanese humor. My second recommendation is if you would like to see what tapa-style bars look like and see what the yokochos look like, you can check out a Netflix show called Midnight Diner. And then my last recommendation was the previously mentioned Jiro Dreams of Sushi. You may notice a common theme there. It's all food related. because that's one of the main attractions of Japan for me. They have great food, and you can watch all about it in my 3 movie recommendations. And if you're thinking maybe not a movie, you'd like to read a book, you can go to page 13 of the PDF and see my 3 book recommendations. If you're thinking, wow, I want to learn more about kabuki and performing arts in Japan, you could read a historical fiction tale all about Izumo no Kuni, the founder of kabuki, and a book called Kabuki Dancer. You could read more about the dark underside of pachinko and what that means in Japanese society in a book called Pachinko. Or if you'd really like to relish in this Valentine's Day romantic theme, you can read Snow Country, which is a tale of lovers, and it's set in beautiful Japan. So yes, if you'd really like to dig deeper, those are my recommendations for movies and books. And thank you for your time and for your patience. I know I have to stay close because I want you to be able to hear me. Thank you for joining this virtual tour. I wish the sound was better, but if you have any questions, I'm all ears.
Hi, Chantel. Thank you. Chantel, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
It's Jenny here. Hi. Thank you very much, Chantel, Brett, and Rob. It's been a feast for our eyes, and the sound did improve, so that was great. I've got a few questions. When you were at the Shinto shrine, there are little paper hangings, the little white zigzaggy bits. What do they represent?
So it's actually a play on words. The word in Japanese for God is kami, right? And the word for lightning is kaminari. So they use the kaminari shape, the lightning shape, to represent that something is godly. So sometimes you'll see those lightning looking things on trees, and that's how you know that that tree has been dedicated as a deity in the Shinto religion.
Thank you very much. Somebody else has asked, could you talk a little bit about the importance and beauty of packaging in Japan?
Oh, wow. So in Japan, there's something called omotenashi, and it's almost like, it's hard to translate, but in a way, it's a perfection towards service, and they don't just see as, the customer's always right. In Japan, the customer is God. So they do everything to the highest degree. Everyone cares about every little thing, even when it comes to packaging. So let's say you go to the Gap to buy a pair of jeans. Even at the Gap, they'll wrap your jeans in a nice piece of paper. They'll put it in a bag. They'll tape the bag. And if it's raining outside, they'll put a plastic cover over the bag. So everything is packaged very beautifully, especially when it comes to souvenirs. So I mentioned in department stores, you can buy small souvenirs like snacks and things.
Yeah.
So because souvenir giving is so popular in Japan, a lot of times you can get one big box and everything is individually wrapped. So that's another way that, you can pass it out to many people, and they make sure that every individual wrapping is just as beautiful as the whole.
Yeah, I think it's the whole thing about presentation. As you said, the fruit displays are just mind-boggling, and food, of course, is presented absolutely beautifully when you get your dish, and really is a feast for the eyes. Somebody else asks, how much is open, and are museums and galleries open at the moment?
Some are still open, and some are at restricted hours. I know bigger museums at the moment, they have a reservation system where you buy a ticket that says, I'll come in from this hour to this hour, and they just monitor how many people are in the building at a time. But they're mostly open.
They're mostly open. Fantastic. And somebody else is asking, what's the best time of year to visit on a 3-week holiday?
3 weeks?
Different answers.
Ooh, we could give, okay, so my personal favorite time of the year is autumn. I love when the leaves change color. And like I said, food is my thing in Japan. Food in the autumn is the best. The fruits that are in season, the fish that are in season, I don't even know their English names, but something about everything is made with pumpkin and purple sweet potato. Fall food is great. Fall scenery is beautiful. It's warm during the day, so you don't have to worry about the hot, humid summer. And I know, cherry blossoms is a big thing, but they go by so fast and it's such a gamble. You have more of a chance of seeing beautiful things in the fall. So I say come in the fall. In November, so you can see the cute kids in kimono.
Right. And somebody else says, is there architectural beauty for the Japanese in the modern city centre that we've seen? So I guess, how do the Japanese balance their beautiful old architectural heritage and the modern city centre?
Well, if you'd like to learn more about architecture, you could sign up for an architecture tour with Inside Japan Tours. But in this area in particular, there's more of the big, wow, like beautiful buildings, just because this area is so expensive. So because I mean, the land is so expensive to get on, hiring an expensive architect almost doesn't seem like such a barrier. So you'll see more of the big, expensive, beautiful buildings in places like Ginza, another area that's kind of ritzy called Omotesando, and another one that's called Doppongi. Those are the big three. But outside of that, you know, when you get out into the neighborhoods, Tokyo is a city that's like long and flat as opposed to really, really tall. So the beautiful buildings are just kind of centered to city centers, and they're mainly
right. Loads of questions. What is the church-like building in the current image? I think you've moved slightly. Was there a church-like building behind you? I'm not sure we can.
Oh, maybe it's the police box. Oh, I think it's got like the steeple, right? The pointing. That's a police box.
It's a police box. Okay.
So they come in all kinds of shapes and sizes.
Where does the money from the Shinto shrines go? Who empties the box?
So usually, if it's a bigger shrine, you know, they have like an area where you can buy talismans and good luck charms, and they have maidens and monks who attend to the shrine. In this area, this area is government owned, so I don't know who exactly attends to that one, but I'm sure there is some monk or maiden, shrine maiden, who comes in and collects the money, and then it just goes to our upkeep.
Right. Now, Dick says, can Chantal talk about omiyage? I don't know what omiyage is.
Oh. Omiyage is souvenirs, like I mentioned before.
All right.
So in Japan, it's customary to buy souvenirs. So like, I used to work at a Japanese company before this. And anytime, you know, we went on holiday, everyone would go home to their family, or, you know, they'd go on vacation. Without fail, you got sweets from like 12 different people, because everyone brings back the individually wrapped boxes of something from their hometown.
Right.
So just customary to give gifts. That's why everything's individually wrapped. Even if it's at work, it's not a bribe. It's just something that everyone does. It's like a cultural thing. You give gifts at school. It's just common to give gifts.
And somebody says, is Hanamori still a popular store? When I went Sorry?
But we did pass a Hanamori. I can't attest to how popular it is because I've not been there or heard much about it. But they do exist, and we did pass one today. I didn't show it on the camera, but like it was a few shops down one of the streets.
Right. And somebody's saying it seems very quiet. Is that because of COVID and curfew and things?
Oh, definitely. It's much quieter than usual. I mean, if it was normal times doing Rush Tour, we'd be bumping into people like, oh, sorry. Definitely a chiller atmosphere in Tokyo right now.
And somebody says everybody seems to be wearing neutral colors: black, navy, white, and fawn. Do you like bright colors, or is it generally a muted culture?
Urban camouflage, definitely a muted culture. I mean, if we went to Harajuku, if we went to like Shibuya, like the younger fashion areas, you might see like the people wearing Lisa Frank-esque colors, where it's like pink, blue, yellow. I mean, I like bright colors, but for the most part, the beiges, the tans, the blues, the easily, you know, switched out colors are more popular in Japan.
Yeah.
The neutrals.
Kimonos can be very bright though, can't they? They can be pinks, reds, and
all the color combinations that go into kimono, like you have the sash in the middle, the kimono on top, and then another rope. It's so many colors and patterns. It's just interesting that neutrals are the main thing here.
And another question, is there any concern about the overuse of packaging with waste and sort of the environment? Is that
definitely
a thought?
It is a thought to us Westerners a lot of times. I think we care about that, but I think from the Japanese perspective, it's hard to give that up because they want to be polite and they put so much care and so much effort. And it's like, well, if we don't do the packaging, it looks sloppy. So it's definitely a topic of debate in Japan.
And somebody else is asking, does geisha culture still exist and their restaurants? That's probably an hour's lecture, isn't it?
Yeah, people always ask if someone is wearing kimono, is that a geisha? Is that a geisha? 99.9 times no, which is okay. Geishas do still exist. They're almost exclusively in Kyoto, and there's very few up north in Akita. But it is a dying art just because it's so strict. It's hard to stay on that schedule. And if you do become a geisha, you don't go to high school, you start from high school. So it's one of those things where it's like, if you choose to be a geisha, it's hard to do anything else. So a lot of people don't make it past the preliminary rounds, but
Yeah.
it does exist. And nowadays it'll be like families will rent a geisha or businesses will rent a geisha to perform at ceremonies. So no, illicit activities going on there. It's just for like dance and performance and show.
I remember when we were in Kyoto and we went to see a geisha, they told us there was a very high dropout rate after the first year. I can't remember.
Oh,
Yeah. Right. I think we're nearly done. Let me just check whether there are any more questions. They've been rolling in.
There's one question, which is the packaging generally made of paper and card or plastic? The packaging, is it paper or plastic?
Plastic, mostly plastic.
Right.
How are
And
the streets kept so clean?
I'm sorry?
How are the streets kept so clean?
You know what? My theory on that is, okay, so when you walk around Tokyo, you'll notice there's no trash cans anywhere. People are like, where do I throw away my trash? What is going on? So even though there is a lot of plastic waste, people are really particular about how they throw away their trash. So you separate, your cans from your bottles, from your plastics, from your burnables, this, that, and the other, and it's all taken out on separate days. So it's definitely an event to take out the trash. But because trash is sorted so meticulously, it's more common for people to just keep a bag and take their trash home and throw it away properly at home. And then a few times, I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I interrupted you, but people also sweep the pavement outside their apartment.
Oh yeah, I mean, cleanliness is next to godliness, for sure, especially in Japan. People are very particular about appearances. You want to have a good face. It's all about how you are perceived, for sure. And cleanliness is important.
another question, are there any hot baths in Tokyo? We certainly...
Of course. They're called sento. There are a few sento in this area as well. Yeah, if you look on the map, if you see a little green circle with like steam coming out of it, map of Tokyo, they're still here and there. And even like older apartments, there's less and less of them now. Don't even have a bathroom because that bathhouse culture was so big years ago. So there's still within like local neighborhoods, plenty of bathhouses where people will still go and just enjoy sitting in a hot tub.
That sort of ties in with another question. Do you still have your system of washing, slippers, bath time, etc.? So is there still a ritual about washing and bath time and slippers? And
if you go to a bathhouse, you always have to shower first, and then you get into the bath for soaking.
Then you get in the bath.
That's the main ritual. But even people at their own house still will shower first and get into the bath after.
We did that. I think we've exhausted the questions, but you can see that it's an amazing experience for us because the culture is so different and so rich and such a mix of the very old. I have to admit, Richard wanted us to go to one of the theatres, but we didn't think we could either afford it or sit through it, as we wouldn't have understood the work. But it was fascinating seeing the theatres and what an old art form. So what we have to do now is to try and guess when the cherry blossom's going to be at its best and return with you. But I'm with you that we came October, November, and it was a wonderful time because the gardens, actually in the 3 weeks we were in Japan, the trees developed and got better and better everywhere we went. So I think over 3 weeks, you cover the changing leaves and it was just glorious. And we certainly, I think there was a day of the girls or a day of the boys when we were there and all the little kiddies were dressed up and going to the shrines. So that was terrific fun. We had the most amazing time. And somebody asked about itinerary. We covered an amazing amount in 3 weeks and saw so much. So it wasn't long enough. It's obviously never long enough. But thank you so much, Chantal. And thank you, Rob. And thank you, Brett. Expert camera work. Can we see the guys? Hi, thank you very much. At this
Thank you.
point, if we were there for real, you'd hear a resounding round of applause. So just from Richard and me, a massive thank you. And I hope you get home before curfew and have a good rest of the week. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Great team. Thank you. Bye-bye. That was fine. You got much better. I think it was traffic noise didn't help. It was much better than and everybody's on board. Lots of nice